Hello, it is 9 p.m. in Djibouti. It's time to English news. The major lines for tonight's news are a workshop on trilateral cooperation in Africa concerning Djibouti, China, and United States. Concerning international scene, Turkey and United States meetings of Turkish and American ministers. Welcome to our newsroom. Djibouti does not recognize the court sentences international arbitrations in London. On February 22, 2018, the state of Djibouti terminated early the concessions of the Dorale container terminal awarded in 2006 to Dorale container terminal, a company controlled de facto by the minority shareholder DP World. The executions of this concession contract had proved contrary to the fundamental interest of the Republic of Djibouti. The continuations of this contract was seriously prejudicial to the country's development imperatives and the control of its most strategic infrastructure. Several attempts to renegotiate the concessions with DP World initiated by the government were unsuccessful because of DP World's repeated refusal to hear legitimate demand of the Djibouti state. This termination is made necessary and inevitable in accordance with international law. This recognizes the ability of a sovereign state to unilaterally terminate a contract for ground of general interest, the latter being responsible for paying the other party of fair compensation. The termination is also part of a prejudice transparent. Its fund its legal basis in a law aimed at protecting the interest fundamentals of the nation, voted by the Parliament of Djibouti on November 8, 2017, and supplemented by a decree date 22 February 2018. DCT, at the request of the DP World, nevertheless decided to attempt to oppose and initiate unilaterally arbitration proceeding with the London Court of International Arbitrations and International Court of Arbitrations of London. For the People's publicly announced DP World to resume as soon as possible to its rights over the concessions and so on the operations of the Dorale container terminal. Logically, the Republic of Djibouti did not participate in this procedure, considering the International Court of London would judge this dispute only on the basis of the stipulations of contract. The execution is undetermined the fundamental interest of Djibouti. The soil arbiters appoint under the aegis of the International Court of Arbitration is issued an award on July 31, 2018. The government of the Republic of Djibouti, the sole arbitrators, concluded that the concessions contract could not be terminated by the government of the Republic of Djibouti, pursuant to the law of 8 November 2017, and deduced that this is still in force. The Republic of Djibouti does not accept this sentence of classifying this law of sovereignty state. In fact, the award seems to consider that the stipulations of the concession contract concluded between the Republic of Djibouti, the port of DCT, are above the Djiboutian law. She makes no case the sovereignty of the Republic of Djibouti and does not take into account the role of law international. Therefore, the arbitral's award is also understood that a sovereign state would not have the right to terminate a contract which is considered to be contrary to this fundamental interest, but authorizes the other party, DP World, to terminate the said contract to protect its commercial interest. In other words, a contract would be worth more than a law adopted in names of a sovereign people. In any case, DP World's approach of attempt to oppose of a sovereign state is unrealistic and approach are doomed of failure. The contract of concessions was terminated, the staff and assets of the concessions were transferred to a public company specifically created for this purpose and who now manage the infrastructures. This is the reason why is the case only a fair compensation is outcome in accordance with the principles of international law is possible. And concerning the forums on bilateral cooperation between China, the United States and Africa opened this morning at Sheraton Hotel. This forum brought together a host of American and Chinese experts on issues related to international relations, geopolitics, economics and development. This 2 days forum was organized by the Carter Center in close collaboration with the Chinese Institute of Contemporary International Relations, known by the ICR, and the Once Earth Futures Foundation. The main purpose of this forum is to open discussions and ways to strengthen collaboration between Africa, the United States and China in the development of Africa. The opening of this ceremony in the capital of the Republic of Djibouti, it is important to remember that the choice of Djibouti is not trivial, but normally derives from the fact that this country has excellent relations with the United States and China. Indeed, Djibouti is one of the few states in the world where the United States and China each have a military base to fight against terrorism and piracy, but also to strengthen democracy by promoting vigorous participation of citizens' education for the eradication and elimination of disease, the resolutions of conflict and the promotions of collaboration for global development, for the well-being of humanity. Remember that this forum reflects the stabilizing role of Djibouti, land of exchange and meeting in this part of the world, bogged down the relentless conflict. This joint forum of the Chinese Institute of Contemporary International Relations and Carter Center focuses on communication and cooperation between China and US and Africa in the economy, security, governance, development and development futures of Africa.
Collaboration. The workshop gathers together government representatives, practitioners, academics, and I look forward from the insights from all of you around the table.
For his part, the Minister of Economy and Finance responsible for the industry, Mr. Ilyas Moussa Douale, welcomed the participation while underlining the importance of such an initiative to strengthen the stability and development of Africa, and especially the from Africa cooperation between China and the United States.
Your presence at this event testify all of you the cordial relationship and collaboration which exists between my government and China, as well as with United States of America. Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, let me now turn to the topic of my address. The theme that the organizers have selected is very timely and relevant and pertinent to Africa's strategic stakeholders and partners that are concerned about Africa's stability, its prosperity, and its pursuing for transforming its economy. Today, we are not only living in a new global order, but also we are positively and directly affected by it. My country, Djibouti, is a clear example of this new reality. We are witnessing a rapidly shifting world from a unipolar to multipolar reality. According to a report from World Economic Forum, and I quote, "If we are to survive the global geopolitical transition, we must first accept that the era of US hegemony is over. Instead, the world is shifting to a new multipolar order with the US and China as its center. We need to restore and build stable institutions and rules that acknowledge the changed context. They will need to be more inclusive, representative, and legitimate. The role of international mechanisms of cooperation such as the G20 regional organizations, non-state actors, especially financial and philanthropic actors, will also need to be elevated.
Let's listen now the interview take with the participant in our national television.
كموجي فرحدة
An end of training ceremony was held this morning at INAP headquarters. The 5-day training was designed to train employees of the various ministries on the planning strategy. This training was chaired by the Secretary General of the Ministry of Labour, Mr. Abdullah Muhammad Ali, Executive Secretary of Administrative Reform of the Ministry of Labour, Mr. Muhammad Awale, the Human Resources Director of the Budget Minister, Mr. Muhammad Ahmed, the Director of INAP, Mr. Sharmak Idris, responsible for INAP, and the trainer is Dr. Abdul Qadir Ahmed. The participants were issued in different ministerial department, then the certificate discounts were given to the different participants who received good training, and finally the family photo was taken. For his part, the Executive Secretary of the Administrative Reform, Mr. Ahmed Awale, he said first of all thanks to the officials and participants of the various ministerial departments. Today we have closed a training which was a public administration planning. He said strategy before we had on project management, we had for the health strategy accompaniment, and nowadays public administration planning strategy. That means that always improvement of the employees and trainers who has done well. This recognition is of 5 days. For his part, the Secretary General of the Labour Minister, Mr. Abdullah Muhammad Ali, has emphasized the importance of this training for the major professional body. He has indicated that these kinds of training will be a lot in the future months to strengthen the good governance. A dozen third-year medical students closed today their 5-week summer internship at Shakib Hospital. Indeed, these students in the 4th years of medical school's admissions to the Faculty of Medicine have completed a 5 weeks practical trainings under the supervision of Dr. Muhammad Osman. The opportunity for these future doctors to put into practices their theoretical knowledge and acquires a perfect understanding in the field of respiratory disease, including tuberculosis, through immersion in this reference center. These students had the opportunity to meet and follow specialists in the pulmonology and experienced paramedics who accompany them during this course. Every year, the reference hospitals such as the Peltier Hospital or Shakib anti-tuberculosis centers welcome medical students as part of their practical training course in the field to benefit from framework and the transfer of knowledge by a specialist doctor. Finally, it should be noted that the Ministry of Health is already engaged in the medium-term transformations of this referral hospital, which are set to become university hospital and or universities hospital. The prefecturals and regional authorities of the White City pronounced yesterday promise to the Tajura fishery at the inauguration of the ice factory. the ice factory. The ice machine is acquired by the PRF programs, which is under the supervision of the Directorate of Fishery, to improve the conditions of conservation of fish after captures, and also to strengthen the capacity of the cooperative. This acquisition follows the recommendations of the cooperative treasurer, supported by the local authorities of the White City, to meet basic needs, because without ice there can be no conservation, and urgent because the summers is the high season period, catches are much larger, and the need for the ice increases proportionally. At this ceremony, present the Deputy Prefect, Mr. Habib Jirani, and the Regional Council's Director, Mr. Idris Ambassa. Under the auspices of the Secretary General of the Secretary of State for Youth and Sport, yesterday the Hassan Guled Stadiums hosted an important sensibilization meeting that brought together as many executives and dozens of associations from the capital and 5 regions of the interior. These associations, which are qualified as active organizations and working in close collaboration with the State Secretariat for Youth and Sport across the country with the national communities, are identified by the heads of the Community Development Center under the supervision of CDC Director Ms. Roqia Hassan Sheikh. Note the presence of the Director, the head of the Planning Department, Mrs. Ghuresha Ali Gedi, Mr. Ahmed Ali, head of the CDC. According to the directors of the CDC, the goal of this meeting between the leaders and these non-profit entities is to build on the strength of the nation, is to promote the integration and development of youth. It was also a question of identifying sports of youth-oriented association to remedy certain disparities and to focus on supporting the organizations that meet our missions by virtue of the sovereign powers that confer on us. Youth associations can play the role of peer educators and stimulate the implementation of the youth orientation policy initiated by the head of the state. This has the conviction displayed by Mrs. Roqia, provide debate and sound consultations with recommendation that will be the subject of synthesis across the event. Concerning the international scene, in Democratic Republic of Congo, the authorities refused to return of the political opponents in exiles. Moise Katumbi, the latter, has announced his intention is to return Friday in the strongholders of 5 his candidacy. Listen to this report.
The former governor of the mineral-rich Southern province of Katanga, who has been living in self-imposed exile in Belgium since May 2016 after filing out with President Joseph Kabila, had intended to fly home on Friday, but Loroba on Tuesday announced that he could not allow him to return as planned to the Southern city.
Malian President Ibrahim Boubacar Keïta came out ahead in the first round of the presidential election held despite jihadists and community violence, but will find in the second round his main opponent, Soumaïla Cissé. Listen to this report.
Mali's presidential election will go to run-off vote after President Ibrahim Boubacar Keïta failed to get enough votes to win a second term in office, Autry, the Minister of Natural Administration, said in a statement on Tuesday. Keïta won for 1% of the vote, while rival Soumaïla Cissé won 17.8%. They will meet in a run-off vote later this month.
No way out of crisis between the United States and Turkey. The head of the American diplomacy met Friday his Turkish counterpart to reaffirm his determination to obtain the release of an American pastor, but Ankara continues to reject the threat from Washington. Listen, please.
Turkey and the U.S. are locked in the most serious diplomatic crisis between the NATO allies in years. Turkey and the United States were on Tuesday locked in the most serious diplomatic crisis between the NATO allies in years after Washington slapped sanctions on two senior Turkish ministers and Ankara vowed to retaliate. Tensions have reached up in recent weeks over Turkey's detention on charges of American pastor Adrian Bronson, who was first detained in October 2016 and was moved to house arrest last week. The move to house arrest of Bronson, who led a Protestant church in the Aegean city of Izmir, inflamed rather than diffused tensions with President Donald Trump and Vice President Mike Pence, warning Turkey it faced sanctions. The sanctions targeting Justice Minister Abdul Hamid Gül and Interim Minister Süleyman Soylu freeze any property or asset on U.S. soil held by the two ministers and bar U.S. citizens from doing business with them.
The UN Security Council seems ready to support a U.S. proposal to make it easier to get humanitarian aid to North Korea, complicated by the severe sanctions against Pyongyang, according to documents obtained by AFP.
The UN Security Council is supposed to back a U.S. proposal aimed at removing some of the hindrances that the sanctions on North Korea have thrown up in the way of delivering humanitarian aid, according to documents obtained by AFP. North Korea's humanitarian crisis has left about 10 million people, nearly half of the population, undernourished, according to the UN officials, who have reported a drop in food production last year. UN resolutions specify that sanctions should not affect humanitarian aid, but relief organizations argue that strike rate and packing measures are creating bureaucratic obstacles and slowing down the flow of vital supplies. A U.S. proposal put forward last month will provide clear instructions to aid organizations and governments to apply for the UN sanctions suspension for North Korea, according to the next seen by AFP. After weeks of negotiation, the UN Sanctions Committee is expected to give final approval to the new guideline on Monday.
And to close up this edition, the Eiffel Towers reopened its door after a day and on behalf of closing the symbol of Paris, and Warsaw Tourist Center will welcome visitors again this Friday from 9 a.m. after the end of the strike of some of the staff protesting against the receptionist condition of some tourists.
Staff at the Eiffel Tower agreed to end their strike on Tuesday evening, a union official say, meaning the monument will reopen on Friday. The tower, Paris' most famous tourist attraction, closed on Wednesday afternoon over Lightning Quay at the Paris landmark, forcing it to close during the peak summer tourist season. Talks between the CGT trade union and the tower's management over a new access system, which according to workers was responsible for most tourist line of visitors, reached deadlock on Wednesday afternoon and decided to close at 4 p.m. The new system, which from July has reserved separate lift for different types of ticket holders, was exhausting Steve, who had a deal with the frustrated tourist union officials say. The said management has said the summer months were also always busy.
This is it for tonight's news. Thanks for watching us. Have a good evening.